Hey, Joe Coffey here for PremierGuitar.com. I'm with Ufa at TC Electronic. How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Look at this. You guys have a bass amp now. This is cool.
It's fantastic. Wow. We're very, very excited about that. It's definitely our main showing here at the NAMM show. So, yeah.
Well, take me through it. The RebelHead 450. Knowing you guys, you probably went about things a completely new way and redefined, the approach to bass amps, right?
That's exactly right. We like to do things a little bit different and try to, accomplish something that actually makes sense for the players and kind of takes things up a notch. So I mean, we've used the Class D technology like a lot of other manufacturers are doing right now, but we have a couple of other tricks in there as well that we think will make sense for bass players without getting too much in the way, so we can basically ease the life of the bass players a little bit. So if we have a look, it's as you said, it's a 450 watt Class D amp, so it's about 10 pounds in a real nice package with a handle and everything, but that's all good. I mean, that means that you can kind of bring it along, but what it really comes down to is what the functionality and obviously in particular the tone is all about. I think the tone is going to be a little bit tough to cover in this video, but so I'll leave that to the guys themselves to check that out. But speaking about the features and stuff, we kind of looked at some of the different things that make sense for bass players, and one of the things we noticed is that a lot of guys bring their bass and the amp and then they're pretty much up and running, right? But one more thing that they actually do bring to the gig is a tuner. And the reason why we know this is because we've talked to a number of different guys, watched them, and then we also watched all the other manufacturers of amps, and they all have a 1/4-inch connector that says tuner out. So it seems that everybody's in agreement that bass players need tuners. So we kind of built one in because we thought that would be easier to have a fully integrated chromatic tuner always running on the amp, right? Cool. So very nice little feature. Apart from that, pretty straightforward amp when you look at it at first. Gain control, 4 standard tone controls, a little bit of a tube sound knob over here, and then a master volume. Now, the tone controls are pretty standard, like you see on a lot of different amps, seemingly. So they're 4 tone controls, and if you're the kind of guy that just want to tweak that a little bit and get going, you can go right ahead and play that. You'll be up and running in seconds. However, if you don't like where we set the tone controls or where they kind of grab your sound, you can change that by hitting the shift button up here. You get access to the actual frequency, so where the tone control actually grabs your sound. So I can go ahead and change where my low mid in this case is set, and then hit the shift button and I'm back where I set the level or the gain of that particular thing. So in fact, these are 4 semi-parametric bands, but without getting in your way. If you're not a semi-parametric kind of guy, which a lot of players are not, then they're not really in your way. So you can do that if you want it, and just leave it if you don't. Another really cool feature, probably my favorite feature on the product, is that we added 3 user memories. So basically we allow people to store their sound by pressing and holding a simple button. Now that might sound a bit odd for most bass players, because at least we found when we talked to the guys that we asked a bunch of guys about this, right? And they said, well, presets, I don't know, I have my one sound, that's what I use when I'm playing. But then we kind of looked a little bit closer at what they were doing, and most of these guys actually have 4-string or and a 5-string or an upright and an electric. And so we asked them a little bit, so how do you do that when you change your bass? Well, I turn around, I tweak my tone controls, set my gain for my new bass and stuff. And wouldn't it be nice if you could just hit one button and there was the perfect sound for your 5-string now that you're playing that?
That's cool. And these pods are electronic, so...
Exactly. So you make a sound, you press and hold for about a second until it blinks, just like on your car radio, and you've stored the sound. So now we can go ahead and do a different one right here. Second preset, and I can go back to the preset I just made. So really, really easy, really, really simple. Nothing fancy that nobody would be able to figure out. It's really straightforward. Couple of more things. Compression seems to be something that bass players tend to use, or at least we kind of thought we would definitely look into that. So we asked a bunch of guys about compression, how they use that. Most of the guys came back and said, well, I use compression every now and then, but mostly in the studio, because live I can't really make it work. It kind of eats my dynamic and kind of kills my dynamics when I'm playing. So we looked a little bit into why that was. And the thing is, most compressors compress the entire frequency range in the exact same way. And for a bass player, what that means is that every time he hits his E note, or his E string, that'll be controlling the compressor. And when he plays his G string, there's no compression because it's all controlled by the more energetic, the more powerful strings. So what we've done is something that we call Spectral Comp. Spectral Comp is in essence 3 different compressors compressing the lows and the mids and the highs completely independently. And that allows us to kind of even out the compression across the different spectra of the bass. And basically what it all adds up to is a much more transparent way of compressing. So you get the snappiness and tightness that you want from a compressor, but without killing your dynamics completely while playing. Now this all sounds very complicated, so I'm just going to
it's a lot going on, but it's still a very simple,
It's extremely simple, and again with the 3-band compressor, we obviously realized that nobody's going to tweak 3 bands and 3 ratios and attacks and releases. So we mapped it out to one knob that you kind of dial up right in here, and then we've mapped the whole thing out in the background. So it's all going on in the background. You don't have to worry about it. Just dial it in, and you get nice and firm compression without killing your dynamics. So very cool feature as well.
Yeah, tell me about tube tone.
Yeah, tube tone is. I mean, I could lie and just pretend that this is a 450 watt tube amp, but it's not. But still, we wanted the guys to have a chance of getting some of that tube sound in there, right? So we looked at what are all the other guys doing. Right? How do you do that if you have a transistor-based amp? How do you get some of that nice tube sound in there? And we found that a lot of guys, a lot of the amps out there have a small tube in the preamp, and then they say that's what gives you the tube sound. Well, if you look at real tube amps, it's a little more than just one tube in the preamp that makes that sound, right? So what we did is that we did a full-on simulation, I have to admit, of the preamp and the power amp section of the tube amp. And those 2 sections of the tube tone sits before and after the tone controls, which basically means that when you dial this up, you start hitting the preamp a little bit, then you get into the tone section, and then you have a power amp section that kind of simulates the full-on tube circuit, all inclusive basically. And that basically comes down to the fact that you can change the response of your tube tone by changing your tone control. So if you start pushing the low end quite a bit, you'll be hitting the power amp section and changing the character of the tube tone with that. So it's a much more realistic way of looking at what a tube amp really does without really being a tube amp. So really flexible knob that goes all the way from just a little bit of touch of that warm kind of sound and all the way up to a regular overdrive. So very flexible knob.
Tell me about the cabs here.
Yeah, those, again, we wanted to, we did things a little different from most of the guys. As you can probably tell, it's not the standard stack that you'd see with most of the other guys out there. The reason why we did this is that we looked at, the medium-sized gigs for the gigging musicians that in most cases, or in many cases, are done with 410s, right? A lot of bass players bring 410s to the gig. And the thing is, if you bring a 410 cabinet in a standard 2x2 configuration, you have the challenge of getting the full sound that you really want. So if you put it on the floor, you get really nice contact to the floor, you get nice low end and everything, but you can't really hear what's going on down here. If you put it up on a flight case or table or whatever you have, you can hear what's going on, you can hear your notes, but you lose all the bottom end. So we thought, well, instead of doing like this with the drivers, why don't we just stack them on top of each other and do a vertical line stacking, so you actually do get the contact and the nice low end, and also the ability to monitor yourself. So that's why the concept looks like this.
And if somebody really wanted to, they could still get their,
obviously do a horizontal stacking of that as well. Each amp drives up to 3 cabinets, so you can get really loud. We have a 212 and a 210-inch cabinet, and they have this exact same width and height. So any combination of 10s and 12s can be done in a vertical or horizontal stacking. So it gives you maximum flexibility for the player to configure what drivers he wants in what kind of stacking way, right?
So what about pricing and availability?
Yeah, pricing is going to be MAP $995 for the amp, MAP $599 for the 12-inch cabinets, and $499 for the 10-inch cabinets. And then, oh yeah, I forgot to mention this, $149 for the foot switch, which has the mute button, the full-on tuner constantly showing you what's going on with the tuner, and the 3 presets right there. So really, really simple, powered from the amp and everything. $149, everything available pretty much now. We're shipping this next week, so we're very, very excited and very, very happy to have this here.
Awesome. What's the website if people want to check it out?
It's tcelectronic.com/bass.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm Joe Coffey. You're watching PremierGuitar.com.